to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, go to the silent part and reflection. Calling meeting to order. This meeting is the posted announced in accordance with Chapter 231 PL 1975. Mr. Jacobus, please call the roll.
Mr. Grasso. Mr. Kugler. Mrs. Torres. Mr. Zangari.
Present.
Mr. Friedek.
Here.
Mrs. Lombardi. Mr. Rivera.
Here. Are there any comments on the minutes for August 25th, August 28th, and September 15th minutes? Hearing none. We have no SGO representative tonight. Items to be presented by administration. Superintendent's report. Mr. Acosta.
Good evening. A couple of things I will be reporting on. First is Red Ribbon Week, October 23rd through the 31st. It's where the district celebrates being a drug-free school district. Each school has a series of activities for this week to help promote a positive school culture. My second report concerns the electronic violence and vandalism reporting system for the 2013-2014 school year. There are two periods where we must report this to the state. The first period is September through December. In that first period, there were a total of 29 incidents reported throughout the district. 18 at the high school, 6 at the middle school, and 5 at the elementary level. During the second reporting period, which is January through June, there was a total of 55 incidents reported. 36 at the high school, 6 at the middle school, and 13 at the elementary level. We do monthly anti-bullying activities. Every school is responsible for conducting some sort of an anti-bullying activity at their building. These activities help prevent these incidents, where the majority of the incidents are things like fights. So in an effort to try to stop these incidents from happening, we have our monthly activities in each building. I want to acknowledge a couple of people because something that we are trying to get everyone used to is the fact that it's not every man for themselves, at least not while I'm here in this position. We're a team. And as a team, no one does anything by themselves. We work on it collaboratively, and I have a great team that has been helping with both the CUSAC reporting as well as the NJAS reports that will be given shortly. And I just wanted to acknowledge some of the team members. Marilyn Hawthorne, who's not present, but she has been very instrumental in helping out. We have Mr. George Drosty, assistant principal at the high school, who's been a great help. Mr. Carmen Genta, principal of school number 9, who has been a great help. And of course, our acting director of curriculum and instruction, Diana Keller. So the first report we're going to do is report on the performance on the NJ Ask and HESPA. I just want to preface this by saying the presentations will be brief tonight. However, tomorrow I personally will be posting the entire analysis of our test scores, which includes all of the subgroups. We have analyzed the scores for each building. So we compared it to each building, compared it to the district as a whole, compared it to our district factor group, as well as comparing it to the state. So we've done that for grades 3 through 8 and grade 11, which takes the HESPA. We're also going to be posting the CUSAC PowerPoint as well as the CUSAC documents themselves on the website. So tonight will be just an overview. Tomorrow we will have them up on the website so that you can all access them and do your own analysis if you wish. So without further ado, Mr. George Strosty will now do the standardized test score analysis, along with Mr. G.
Good evening. I'd just like to add one other comment with regard to what Mr. Acosta already presented with regard to the analysis that we did for the district. Not only is it beneficial for you to get a better understanding of how we performed as a district, but it is also for our principals so that they understand how they performed with regard to the district in their attempt to develop what we call a progress target action plan. Every single school is going to develop, based on their analysis, an action plan to address any deficiencies that you might see as we go along through this very short presentation, but more so in terms of what you would see on the actual website tomorrow, and in more in-depth, not only just in terms of the subgroups, but in addition to those test items and how the students performed individually. So as you can see here, it's going to be very short. There's only 6 slides. And we're focusing today strictly on the total population. So in other words, it's including all the subgroups, it's including the general population, it's including the special ed population, and it's including the LEP population. That is, of course, the limited English proficiency, or ESL students. So, as we said, this covers the NJ Ask for the spring of 2013 for grades 3 through 8, and the HESPA for 2013 for grade 11. Mr. Dutra, can you go to the next slide? What we're going to show you, as Mr. Costa said before, is an analysis based on individual schools within the district so they can compare amongst themselves, how they can compare to the district, how they can compare to the district factor group. And if you did not know, a district factor group is the means by which the state rates us. We are a CD, district factor group. It goes from A to, I believe, I, and we are a CD. As you can see, number 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are our elementary schools in terms of grade 3 and how they performed last year on the language arts and the math portion of the NJ Ask. You'll see there is a district performance, that is all the schools combined, how other schools within our factor group performed, and of course the state overall average. You can see they do vary, and there are some schools that obviously need to be addressed in terms of some aspects, and that is done, of course, through the comprehensive analysis by each of one of the principals as they develop their action plan. The blue is, of course, language arts, as you can see at the elementary level. All across the board, and even at the state level, the math scores are typically higher than the language arts, and that, of course, might flip-flop as you go into the other grade levels. So this is the grade 3 for each one of the different schools, and as you can see, there are varying degrees of achievement within each school. Okay? Next slide. As you can see, the bar graphs for grade 4 took a slight dip. Okay? Obviously, we have recognized that there are several grades within our district that need to be addressed over other grades in terms of level of importance. In grade 4, which is now our current grade 5, is the one that we're going to be focusing on because, as we can see, the achievement is significantly lower than it was in the grade 3, which is our current grade 4 students. Again, the same format is being applied. As you can see, there is one school that definitely is sticking out amongst the others, but that's not to say that our other students are not achieving. Of course, you have to understand, in terms of school number 10, it's a smaller population, and it's not that necessarily school 4 or school 5 or school 8, which is a larger population, doesn't get the same amount of instruction. It's just for this given class, it appears that they did successful compared to all the other averages. Next slide is grade 5, and you can see there's an upturn again. So as we go through the slides, what you will notice is there are 2 grades that we have to focus on, primarily. It's not to say that neither one of these grades should not be addressed, but our level and our priorities are going to be focused more so on a particular grade level as opposed to the other. Again, you can see in this case the math scores are significantly higher than the language arts, and there is of course a variance amongst the schools, but certainly the math levels, as you can see, is more consistent with the state and district factor grouping as opposed to the others. There's a little more consistency in their performance. Next slide. This one is a little more complicated probably to understand. This is the middle school. The middle school is one school, so I don't have to compare it to the district because the district itself is the school as opposed to the elementary schools. We have to compare to the district as a whole. So what you'll only see is the performance levels related to the district factor groups within the 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, and the state averages. And as you can see, the 6th grade has performed reasonably better than the 7th, which of course did not perform as well as the 8th. And you can see significantly in one level, the language arts is lower than the math in grade 6. And then when they get into the middle school, unfortunately, see there seems to be some sort of reversal in terms of success. The math scores certainly have been lower. Our goal, obviously, as you can see, is the 7th graders did not perform as well as the 6th and the 8th, and that is another grade level that requires a priority, as is our current 5th grade. I'm sorry, did I get the 11th grade? If you look at the 11th grade scores, there is indeed a significant amount of achievement and success. And if you compare it to the district factor and state levels, the high school performed very well and has been for the past few years. Next slide. This, for the benefit of the audience, is a comparison of the last 3 years in terms of their performance in language arts, and ultimately the next slide will be in math. But you can see how the grade 3 performed in language arts in the past 3 years, the grade 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And once again, you can see where we are focusing again. The grade 4 has significantly dropped over the past 3 years, so our current 5th grade class is a concern. As well as you can see in the grade 8, though the drop is not as significant, there is some concern as well, as is, of course, as you can see with the 7th grade, there is a significant drop from the previous year to this year, all of which is going to be addressed in our action plan, and of course through our SIP, which is our school improvement plan for the middle school, that is being assisted with us through the state. Last slide, this is the math, and as you can see, the math scores are significantly better, but again, in terms of consistency, again, you will see that the grade 4 took a significant dip in terms of their performance. And of course, that's going to be addressed with our current 5th grade students. And the same thing can be seen in terms of the 8th grade scores in mathematics as well. What you have to understand is that the principals, in conjunction with everyone within this administration, is trying to come up with a plan for each one of their schools. And as we receive those individual action plans, of course, it's going to be addressed at the district level. So you have to understand it's twofold: school, district, so that we, as the district, can assist the schools wherever there might be a necessity in terms of the overall event, and yet at the same time assist them at the individual school level. Certainly, at a given time, I would be more than happy to take questions, but we do have more information to provide. If you certainly want to get in contact with me once you have the opportunity to view the entire analysis, please do so. Thank you.
So just really quick, in regards to the NJ Ask analysis, what's going to be posted on the website isn't a PowerPoint, it'll actually be an Excel workbook. I believe I have 32 different graphs breaking down each subgroup for each grade level for the district. So it's a lot of information, but it'll be in an Excel format rather than a PowerPoint format. Next, we have Diana Kelleher, who will be presenting our CUSAC report.
Good evening, everyone. I stand before you as the voice of our CUSAC committee, who has begun laying the foundation for the changes that we are about to embark upon that will serve to improve the teaching and learning process in our district, as well as highlight the strengths, the knowledge base, and the commitment of our educators. Earlier today, as I was speaking to Mr. Pagano, he shared with me that his high school has recently adopted a new mantra. And it states, with the new day comes new strength and new thoughts. I couldn't think of a more fitting manner in which to begin this presentation. We are on the precipice of change as a district. Tonight we will look at results that certainly will not overwhelm, but they will motivate. And I will say this, the one thing we are rich in is our source of commitment, education, and expertise when it comes to our educators and our administrators. And with that, that will be our strength as we move forward to benefit the education of the children that we have been put in charge of. Thank you. Like anything else in education, CUSAC has its special acronym. We are land of the coded. And what it stands for is Quality Single Accountability Continuum. And it's a continuum that covers 5 different areas. It is the organized system in which the Department of Education of New Jersey ensures that we are following both state and federal mandates. It's a 3-year process that you go through. Each year you submit a document called the Statement of Assurances. You are ensuring the Board of Education, the citizens in the community, parents and all stakeholders that you will abide by and put in place the necessary steps in order to run a smooth and functioning school district. That document is called the Statement of Assurances. Every 3 years, you go through a process called a DPR, which is a District Performance Review. Now, this is the heavy-hitting part. This is where you actually do a self-assessment of where you as a district, and you have to look at yourself in quite a raw manner, where you stand, because from that point, it leads you to where you need to go. It's like any manner of self-assessment that we human beings use, except it comes in 5 categories. Last year, I'm sorry, Mr. Gentil. Last year, our district was required to do both self-assessments, which was the Statement of Assurances and the District Performance Review. We then submitted that to the county, Joe Zauer, our county superintendent, for his review. We then waited as they processed our information. We then waited for them to arrive and to do an on-site district monitoring review. The 5 categories that were examined for our district were instruction and program, fiscal management, governance, operations, and personnel. It's important to know that in each of these categories, the Statement of Assurances and the DPR, the District Performance Review, there are certain indicators that you must meet. They are fully documented, and you score yourself either that you are in compliance and you get a point of 1, or that you are not and you get a point of 0. There's really no wiggle room, there's no debating, it's a very stringent assessment tool. The SOA has 50 indicators and the DPR has 60. This is just a quick breakdown for your edification on, for each category, each of the 5 categories, how many Statement of Assurances indicators there are and how many DPR indicators there are. And as you can see, it's either balanced or it's more heavily weighted when it comes to your district performance review. So here's how the self-assessment is done. Our chief school administrator is charged with the responsibility of putting a committee together. And that committee should be representative of the stakeholders in your district. That includes central office administration, district administrators, supervisors, teachers, Board of Education trustees, and of course, your chief school administrator. The task that the committee is presented with is, it is their job to use the DPR tool, your district performance review tool, and to go out and collect the necessary data to support that you are indeed in compliance. These can be meeting agendas, this can be district minutes, attendance sheets, your district's PDP plan, lesson plans, administrative feedback placed on lesson plans, your evaluation tool, certainly test scores. How is the self-assessment done? Each time the district is in compliance, as I mentioned earlier, you get a score of 1. And this is for both the SOA, which is the Statement of Assurances, and the DPR. If your district is not in compliance, there's no space for a reason why, you just get a 0. The awarding of the above points translates into a percentage score, which you'll see the importance of in a moment, that ranges from 0 to 100. It's kind of like old school testing, right? What'd you get? I got a 90, I got a 60, I don't want to tell my mom. The completed QSAC, SOA, and DPR reviews are submitted to the New Jersey Department of Education for their review. So you send your documentation in. The stamp of approval before sending information out, and the nod that this is ready to be shared is given by our chief school administrator. That individual ensures that the responses in the district's DPR encompass and reflect all the circumstances that exist within the district. It is also the chief school administrator's task to ensure that all responses on the DPR can be verified by both data and documentation. So that is your truth in statement playing out. So here's where our district last year graded themselves after their self-assessment. In instruction, it was a 60%. Fiscal management was 100, governance 100, personnel 100, and operations 95. So you may say, okay, well, what happens next? You've submitted all this. Well, now comes the most important layer of this process. This is where we are now visited, and people spend time with us from the county and the NJDOE to actually see what our life is like here in our educational zone. So, the district prepared for a visit from the Essex County Executive Superintendent's Office. This visit occurred January 7th and 8th of 2014. Upon arriving, the county office exhibited the evidence that we had prepared. There were CUSEC binders and folders. They visited schools because part of the actual visit, it's one thing on paper, but they needed to step into our learning labs, see what was happening, how we were engaging students in instruction, how closely aligned our lessons were to the Common Core standards, what our instructional tools were, what our curriculum guides look like, what plan we have for moving forward. And then they assigned scores. Now the ultimate goal in any one of these assessments is to get an 80%. So well, it's here. There was a bit of disparity between how the district viewed themselves and how the county scored us. So a brief overview. The one that hits the hardest to any one of us here, and it doesn't matter what job capacity we're serving in at this moment, we are all teaching brethren, and we are all committed to the education of children. So the one that we found most moving, most palpable, was the first score, instruction and program. The district has assessed themselves at 60%. The county scored us at 29%. For fiscal management, the 100% score was viewed as a 44%. Governance, 100% from the district's lens, was scored as 60%. Personnel, 100% was viewed as 80%, and operations, 95%. It's the only uplift from our own findings, which was 100. So, scores are scores, but what really matters if you take a longitudinal look at where we are, because our journey over the last 3 years, you either decide, well, it's working for us, we're going to keep the plan, or we need to change our game up. We need to come together as the committed individuals that we are and start informing our practices in somewhat of a different manner. So if you just take a little journey back, knowing that this is a triennial process, 3 years ago, the county score in 2011 gave us our scores of 50% for instruction, 93 fiscal, 93 governance, 88 personnel, 77% operations. Now because we scored below an 80%, we immediately were guaranteed oversight from the county until that score lifted. So of course, the second year, we had an interim scoring. The county came back in, they said, well, what do you want to do about this? We're giving you close to 6 months to a year, put a plan together, let's see how you fare now. So as you can see, the only area that required a plan in 2011 moving forward to 2012 was instruction. And obviously, we put some fairly decent items in place to affect the teaching learning process in a positive manner, especially in the view of the county, and our score was elevated to 71%. Still, involvement was mandated because it's not the 80% that's required in order for us to have the county back up and say, okay, you're good. You don't need our support, our guidance, our wisdom right now. 2013, upon their return, the interim report yielded a score of 53%. Searching to see what may have been the cause of this, we did discover that there were concerns about curricular items, guides, adherence to the Common Core. Some test scores started to erode that 71 that we had risen to. And now our current reality. Now, here's the reality of life. You're faced with a situation, and you have to make a choice. Do we continue to do what we've been doing? Probably not. Or do we get together as an educated, committed, educational community, and change some of our patterns, procedures, and approaches. It's probably the second choice. And that is indeed the language that our CUSAC committee has been speaking since we had the scores shared with us. That's coming in some simple matters that you're already feeling if you're part of our teaching brethren. We're standardizing approaches in our district. We've begun the discussion of the importance of using data. You saw tonight how revealing test scores are, especially when they are laid out in a form where you can compare and track your journey. Question begs to be asked, what's happening at a school that scored slightly higher or much higher in ELA in a particular grade? We need to be hungry about that search. We need to get together, have vertical and horizontal articulations with our brethren, and start sharing. Because there are wonderful things happening, but we need to start making a vehicle for sharing of information, for growing our professional and educational muscles. That needs to become our priority. We've adopted one lesson plan format. Now, creativity is wonderful, but there are certain things that we have to standardize. Moving forward, knowing there's a hypersensitivity to our use and our alignment of instruction to the Common Core, we've gone to the use of a three-part objective, which will promote students being actively engaged in their learning and understanding. That objective is being honored again with the importance that it should have always had. It is the GPS of a lesson, and it's written for our students. So we are building our muscle in that aspect. There's a measure component that every child reads when they start their lesson, and they know what they need to be able to accomplish by the end of that period. We've included checking for understanding. Those are those pulse points that teachers use constantly that we need to highlight. We do this well. We'll be on the website by tomorrow morning. We have a 60-item glossary for checking for understanding that we've shared with our staff because we realize we cannot expect change unless we all are in this together. It's not enough to say, work on that DI, that differentiation of instruction, and good luck, I'm looking for it when I come in to visit your rooms. No. There needs to be full commitment on all aspects. And administrators are equally accountable for the gathering of information and sharing it and perpetuating the focus of learning. We've also added a column because we will build our muscle on differentiated instruction. That means meeting students at their levels of readiness and interest, whether by content, product, or process. And we've had PD on this in the past, but PD on great topics that occurred 7 and 8 years ago, after a while, that's just a whisper of a memory. Those need to become things that are on the forefront again, including co-teaching. We saw scores tonight. We're going to talk more about our subgroups. We have wonderful, wonderful children who work at various learning levels. We have co-teachers who make wonderful instructional partners. But it's been a long time since we've talked about the practice of what it takes to work in that professional classroom marriage. What that dance is like when two teachers work together for the one greater good of instructing students on varied learning levels and learning styles. So, these scores in red, which is no longer, it's not a secret. Our goal is we all are going to look at this together and examine it, all stakeholders. These scores, they will not stay that way. That red, sure, it looks like it's wounded a bit. When I was a special educator in the classroom, I never used the color red because I always thought it made the paper look like it was bleeding, and I never wanted any child to think their assignment was wounded. But this tonight is an appropriate color choice because we do have a bit of a bleeder. But it's not something we can't fix, or we can't remedy or heal. These scores will elevate by sheer will, collaboration, and care. So what happens next? When you score in any of the areas 80% or below in one or more of the CUSAC components, you are required, old-fashioned word, to do an action plan. What they officially call it is a DIP, a district improvement plan. The district developed a DIP for fiscal management and governance. Both were submitted on October 1st of this school year, and both were approved 9 days later. We've got to go to start putting those in process immediately. Those two plans that have been approved on the county and state level, they will be on the website tomorrow morning as well. Now, it is evident that in the instruction and programming aspect, we have more work to do. So fittingly, the title is called a long-term plan, because that's we have to have a long-range plan. So that is required for any score that is 50% or below in any one or more of the CUSAC components. An LTP for our district must be developed and submitted by November 1st. We'll make that deadline. We're going to make it earlier. Because the earlier we submit, the earlier we get approval, and the earlier all of the officialness begins. But please know that we are not waiting until we get that official word. We've already begun to put best practices in place. Let's see. Monitoring the district's progress. It's important to note at this point that we have support coming from all levels. We have support. We may have been involved in the immediate conversations with our county superintendent, who was just here this afternoon. Again, he's a frequent visitor. Works closely with Mr. Egan and with us. We have our RAC, the Regional Achievement Center. The middle school knows that team quite well. Dr. Lindgren is the project director for that team. Kathy Coyle is the overall director of our RAC region. They are caring very much about us and offering all kinds of support, professional development, and to dispatch their professional and knowledgeable staff to help us out. And that's just the beginning, because in-house, we have many in-house experts. We just need to create those opportunities for you to get together, grade level meetings. Already is an alignment of articulation faculty meetings on the elementary and middle school level. You all have faculty and articulation on the same day. There's a method to that madness, because we'd rather you have, with travel time, 40 minutes of good dialogue with your teaching brethren of the same grade level and subject area, than an hour's meeting of management, letting you know when toner is coming in, that you've used your complement of paper for the month. We have no time for that anymore. Matters like that will be emailed to you. When we gather together, that will be professionals talking about the art of teaching. I'm sorry, what was that last slide? Was there anything on the last slide? Oh, important day for us. We just got word that the county superintendent and his CUSAC team will be returning to district for an official interim checkup on April 25th, 2015. It seems like a long time away, but it's not. We have much work to do before they arrive. For the sake of, I could talk. So I'm the girl who couldn't talk until there were commercials when I was growing up. My family was watching TV. But I think that there are just some key points here that we probably need to understand so that we know what direction we're traveling. CUSAC findings that impacted our instruction score. There are many more. We're going to put the entire document up. But here are some important ones. As you can imagine, test scores are a major pulse point when it comes to rating our district. So here's what was found. Based on the 12-13 New Jersey ASC and HESPA statewide assessments, on a score of 0 to 30 points, the district, and this will be the last time we have a single-digit score, but our district scored 4 points out of 30. And what helped us earn those scores was that we had 70% proficiency in science. However, the district did not meet the annual measurable objectives in language arts and mathematics for its total student population. And unfortunately, these insufficient gains, well, quite frankly, CUSAC weighed and measured us and found us not worthy. That will change. We did not live up or conform to the CUSAC expectations. Now, it's important, talking language that we talk in education for years. We had AYP. Everyone was concerned about AYP. AYP, do we make AYP? That was adequate yearly progress. That was language that was a vestige of No Child Left Behind. In order for our state to be released, to be granted a waiver, to find another plan to be committed to, we took on a new acronym because we like code language, you know that. Annual Measurable Objectives. These are target indicators. And really what this AMO is about is that it said, the last scores that we saw, the last number of proficient students, the sum total that we registered for the 2010-2011 school year, or 2009-2010 school year, we're going to take that number of proficient students. And proficient students is a combination of those students who obtained a proficient score and an advanced proficient score. So it's a sum total of that group. And so, see this group that achieved proficiency, this number? Well, by the year 2017, you must have at least 50% of this number added on. So the language is, so that by 2017, the percentage of non-proficient students in all student groups in each subgroup is reduced by half when compared to the 2010 results. Analysis of the district's statewide student achievement, well, we fulfilled this requirement. We took a hit this year, and we lost points. What you viewed tonight, and Mr. Drosty so eloquently discussed, was that you must compare building to building, grade to grade. That's your world. That's our world. We have to know what's working, where is it working, where can we learn from in our own district. In addition to, obviously, what we did do last year was compare to the state and the district factor averages. Our district, in general, as deemed by the QSAC report, needs to show greater fidelity to the Common Core standards. And that translates into more rigorous monitoring of our process and our curriculum development. It also requires us to integrate technology in a more rigorous manner and to also have Common Core standards addressed in a multidisciplinary fashion. This means reading is just, we know this, it's just not a reading teacher's job. Everybody's a reading teacher. Everybody teaches writing. It's an interwoven process that translates across all academic areas. We talked about curriculum guides, instructional materials, and lesson plans that have to be standards aligned. The state said we have to do this better. We have to do a better job of this. They also said that we need to gather our teaching brethren together and have horizontal, that means third grade teachers get together, or vertical, 6th and 17th grade teachers talk to one another. And then, everybody has their part in this. They said, administrators, you need to enhance your practices that involve overseeing the delivery of instruction and lessons that reflect the Common Core standards. This means lesson plan feedback. It's not enough to initial lesson plan. You must read these documents and give feedback that informs the practice of teaching. This means when we do walkthroughs, they should be targeted. It shouldn't be a mystery to the staff what tool we're using. So we've adopted a Danielson-based, we use the Danielson model for teacher observations. So logically, we should have a walkthrough form that reflects that. And we do. That will be shared with the staff. It was handed out at the last administrators meeting. We will not begin to use it until the month of November because the staff needs to see it. They need to become comfortable with it and the rubrics, and we will have what we call targeted walkthroughs. If we talk about the three-part objective in PLCs, professional learning communities, and articulation meetings, and team meetings, and grade level meetings, then you know what? That would be a logical thing to check when we walk through classrooms. And our teaching brethren shouldn't have to wonder, what are they looking for? We need to remove and demystify this entire process. That can only come with vigorous and routine dialogue. Quickly, fiscal management. Notably, fiscal and governance from a woman who is very comfortable navigating through the waters of the classroom. I will share out what we were able to cull from those reports, but know that greater minds are forming the plans. I'm looking at one of the great minds in the back right now. Mr. Egan and Mr. Jacobus are here to heal us with this matter. The secretaries and treasurers' reports need to be completed and filed with the required timelines. There are administrative codes to support all of these requirements. On a monthly basis, the district needs to prepare and analyze fiscal cash flow management, very much like what we do in our own personal lives, for all funds, ensuring that payments can be made on a prompt basis and their reimbursement requests for federal grant awards are submitted in a timely manner for the actual amount of incurred expenditures. This language comes right from CUSAC. Planning a budget that needs to be aligned with the district's strategic plans and academic priorities. It's like a Venn diagram. You have your fiscal here, you have your instruction and program here, and that overlap of those two circles is where it really matters. What is our 5-year fiscal plan that supports our 5-year instructional plan? And in that 5-year plan, we address things that have to do with curriculum, materials, textbooks, technology, professional development. The district needs, Carmen. The district needs to annually align fiscal goals and budget objectives to ensure that instructional resources are sufficient to address the needs of all students, that curricular is developed, that professional development is provided for staff. The board needs to review all audit recommendations and, if required, submit an acceptable cap or corrective action plan for any audit findings, recommendations, or any other compliance-related report. And lastly, monthly board secretaries and treasurers' reports need to be approved within 60 days of month's end, and certified in the minutes that the major funds have not been overexpended. Dear stakeholders, all of these changes are possible. Quite frankly, they're inevitable. We are at the precipice of change with promise ahead of us. So I leave you with one thought. There's a plaque that sits in my office. It's no bigger than maybe a 6x6 square. And it's by Ralph Waldo Emerson. I look at it each day, and it reminds me that this is exactly the guiding principle for all of us. It's how I live my life. Remembering that nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. And one thing I do know about our administration, staff, parents, our dear students, and our community members, our Board of Education, and all those who matter and care. We are not short on commitment, care, enthusiasm, dedication, and a love for learning. And the only thing that we need to do now is remind ourselves that we have to recapture that enthusiasm. Thank you very much.
Mr. Egan, the state monitor will now give his report.
Thank you. Ms. Keller gave a wonderful report. Talked about the impact. Ms. Keller gave a wonderful report, noting and summarizing the CUSAC results and talking about a number of different plans on how to improve Belleville. I'm going to be a little shorter. Under instruction, the scores have crashed. We have to change it. We have to establish an atmosphere where teachers can teach and students can learn. The staff must be provided with the proper tools to promote education. Students should be furnished with textbooks and up-to-date technology.
Yeah, baby, yeah. What I'm talking about.
In summary, those are my goals. As for the educational side of the house. She was right, and as far as fiscal management is concerned, we are moving in the right direction. Controls have been tightened. Spending is more precise, and more documentation is necessary before any purchase orders are issued or any monies are expended. I do feel, because there was an uproar in the community and a negative impact on the school over the phones being shut off, and I don't think that the board's position was correctly expressed in the news media. And I would just like to go over one or two things. Clarity Corporation basically has a contract which is basically one-sided. They have complete control over our technology and our phones. But we are in the process of changing that, and so that people can understand. Clarity right now has 2 remaining contracts outstanding. One is to be the IT coordinator or IT company, and the other one, the contract is to be responsible for E-rate. For those who don't know, E-rate is a system where school districts across the country, because it's a federal program, can get reimbursed for expenses that they incur to upgrade technology, which includes the phone system. Belleville is under a complicated formula, but basically it said that the Belleville school district would be entitled to 71% reimbursement for money spent on E-rate. Clarity Corporation for the school year ending June 30th of 14 was paid a little over $120,000 to the E-rate company, which would entitle 71%, would entitle the district to approximately $86,000 in return. We never saw a penny of it because, contrary to public statements that Clarity has made, they are not recognized by the federal government as an E-rate provider. I found more disturbing is that's strictly a money issue. What I found more disturbing is what happened after the Labor Day. Yes, it was the Labor Day weekend when the system crashed. An inspection of the core equipment, which has been going on for a number of years. That equipment, to use the technical term, is at quote-unquote end of life. That means the software providers and the manufacturers of the equipment will no longer service the equipment once it goes beyond useful life. A separate company was called in which has a presence in the state, and represents and does work for many, many school districts. The company's called Pro Media. They were hired to come in and do an assessment of the equipment, the core equipment that we have. And that equipment, overwhelming majority of it is end of life. In order to repair that equipment, not repair, replace it, so that the students in the district would have a operating technology system. The cost this district, the one estimate that we just received, was a little more than $1.5 million. It's just, these are some of the financial issues that the district is facing. To promote education, this technology upgrade has to be done. We will work on it. The proposal will be presented and examined by the district's technology committee. We will get second opinions and look to develop a plan to move forward. Technology is necessary in order to improve education. It goes hand in hand. You need good teachers. You need students that are willing to learn, and technology is part of the tool package that they should have. Hopefully we'll go in that direction. Thank you.
Items, remarks, and committee reports will be presented by board members. Mr. Grasso. Mr. Kugler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mrs. Keller, I would also like to thank you for a wonderful presentation today. As we all witnessed here, a lot of key words were presented today in that presentation. We got to take ownership as a group, work together, collaborate with each other, communicate, and work, because we have a lot of great educators here. But as I witnessed here in my short time on the board, we need that strong foundation, that strong leadership from up, down. And yes, we know everybody becomes complacent at some times, and we need somebody to, light a fire. And as we know, the committee is doing a great job there to pinpoint the exceptions and the findings that were noted, and a corrective action plan in place to improve it. As we all know, it is a great task ahead of us, but we all need to come together, work together, and please, everybody take part in the superintendent search as well. Provide back your feedback, because that would be greatly appreciated, because it is a critical step in our process here. Along with, we had a budget committee meeting today as well. Mrs. Lombardi, myself, and Mr. Egan touched on a lot of areas we already discussed. We are hopefully going to be moving forward very shortly with the state aid being received. That we're having an order to come here next week, so we'll know in the next few weeks where we stand there. There's a lot of battles and items we have to overcome as a district, and we will do it as we always persevere and work together. Next thing I would like to comment on is I went to the PTA meeting last Thursday for School 4. It was great to see everyone there. Quite a few items were brought to our attention that I wasn't aware of, and I spoke to Mr. Costa, and I believe we resolved most of those issues, and I think the parents and the teachers will be happy there going forward. And again, thank you for working with us. We do have great educators that we all take pride in this district. That's why everyone is here, as you can see. And we need to bring that pride and commitment back. And it's going to take a toll on all of us, but we got to work together and stay strong and positive. And there's a lot to overcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kugler. Mrs. Torres.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd also like to thank Mrs. Keller for her report. It was very interested, and I am very confident that we are going to move this district forward. I think that the key thing here is that everyone needs to work together. I think that working together will improve our test scores, will improve our community, will improve all around. I'd also like to say that we had our first grant committee meeting, which Ms. Lombardi chairs. We are definitely working together with the grant writers to see where we can get funding and how we can get some grants in order to assist with improving our service. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Torres. Mr. Zangari?
No comment.
Thank you, Mr. Zangari. Mr. Frieda?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of things with regard to the superintendent search. As hopefully all of you know, that there is a survey that's out there, and that is available. If you don't know the survey or you haven't taken the survey yet, just go to belleschools.org, and it's scrolling across the top of the screen. So we are scheduled to meet tomorrow night in committee to discuss this. The firm that's doing this for us is Strategic Educational Advantage. That they're very nice people, and they took the opportunity to interview each of the board members, as well as different members of varying groups and members of the community. We think that's a wonderful thing, because it's always nice to gather input to see, what the community is looking for in the new superintendent. So we will be meeting tomorrow night, and then hopefully in a very, very short period of time, what we want to do is to gather all this, come up with a set of requirements that we're looking for, and then get the search started in the most expeditious manner possible. That's one thing. The second thing that I just wanted to discuss here was more of a technology point of view. I just wanted to clarify something in terms of technology. We know that we need a lot of money to replace and upgrade our technology, but we try to do our best over the years with limited resources that we have. So one of the things that last year there were 330 laptops that were purchased for use for the park testing, because as all educators know, the park testing has a very, very, very specific, very, very rigid set of requirements that it needs in terms of technology. So laptops needed to have a certain amount of horsepower in order to be able to work with that, to be able to satisfy the test, because it's actually either yes or no. If you don't have everything in order, the test won't even start. So it was important that we get that done. And I know that they had done correct me if I'm wrong, mock testing was done also to try to test it out. And I think we were largely successful. Another thing in terms of that comes to mind immediately is the network wireless upgrades were done. So in an attempt that was necessary to get ready for park testing too. Unfortunately, everything has an end of life, and sadly some of the equipment, has reached the end of life. And we are definitely looking forward to try to fund that to get that upgraded and bring some new life into it. That's it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Frieda. Mrs. Lombardi?
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. I just want to thank Mr. Drosky and Ms. Kelleher for your reports this evening. Appreciate it. And one more time, I would like to thank our teachers and nurses and staff and administrators for all your hard work through this really difficult time. We really appreciate all your efforts. And we know that the kids are learning despite some of our issues that we're handling here. So thank you very much.
It would seem that we have a tremendous job ahead of us trying to get ourselves back on board. And I'm sure that our administrators and staff are up to the task. Ms. Cullen, thank you very much for the report. It's very informative. And that's all I have for tonight. Remarks for Mr. Abbott. Motion open for public participation. Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Remarks regarding agenda items and issues that are relevant to the education system. The participant must sign in and be recognized by the presiding officer, and must preface comments by an announcement of his or her name, place of residence, and group affiliation if appropriate. The individual called shall proceed with a maximum of 5 minutes. All statements shall be directed to the President of the Board of Education. No participant may address board members individually. Joseph Delfaro, please come to the podium, state your name, address, and group affiliation if appropriate, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joseph A. Delafera. I reside at 44 Celia Terrace here in Belleville. I'm a former teacher here in the district for the past 2 years under contract. I want to make it clear to all of you, I'm not here as a disgruntled former employee. I just want to set the record straight tonight. I'm not asking anybody any questions. I was at just a party a few weeks ago to celebrate with everyone in town. My wife's lived in this town all of her life, and I had a very prominent person who shall remain nameless right now because I promised my wife I wouldn't say his name, but I think you'll figure it out. This gentleman came up to me to ask me how I was doing, and I said, "How am I doing? You took my job away." And he said, "No, I didn't." I said, "Yes, you did." He said, "You paid for your job, didn't you?" I said, "What are you talking about? I did not pay to get my job here in Belleville as a teacher." I was appalled. And if anybody else in here thinks or thought that, you should be ashamed of yourselves. I don't want to repeat myself, but I worked hard to become a teacher. I'm not telling you I'm the best teacher in this town. I substitute taught for several years in all of the elementary schools. I was a first grade teacher 2 years ago with Mr. Ginta at school number 4. And last year, I was asked to teach as a special education teacher at the middle school. I had never taught in the middle school. I did the best I can. Everybody was supportive of me, and I thank you for that. You were a great help to me in my only year at the middle school. I'm disgusted, though, that I wasn't rehired, and I'm seeing nothing against the people personally who were rehired. I'm shocked that I wasn't rehired, and I have a feeling that it was said that I paid for my job, I suffered because of a lie. And another teacher said, I want to get back to that person, said to me in our conversation, "My daughter Lisa, who's a teacher, spoke up for you." Why would his daughter have to speak up for me at all? Where did this conversation take place about whether I should be a teacher or not, coming back as a teacher? Why would the mayor have to speak to his daughter, Lisa Gabriel, who teaches at school late, to decide whether I should be hired or not? Sorry, Denise, has to come out. Why did that conversation take place? Where did it take place? What also aggravates me, Mr. Egan said that the people who were hired had the best qualifications. Before anybody was hired for the elementary schools, I found out, and I came back. I was waiting to be interviewed, and there was a young lady also waiting to be interviewed after me, and she tells me and the secretary, I don't have any connections in my hometown of Nutley, but my boyfriend's mother teaches at school number 4. She got the job. So as I said before, there's still fishy things going on here in town. But I'm going to keep my head up. I was committed and dedicated to Belleville. Whatever happens, happens. Right now I'm sitting home collecting unemployment. I'm becoming quite the dog walker, chef, and house cleaner. Thank you very much. I'll see you around.
Tom Cohen. Cohen, please come to the podium. State your name, address, and affiliation if appropriate, sir.
Tom McCrone, Continental Avenue. I have a couple of comments about the presentation tonight. You stated that everything was going to be done tomorrow on the website. Exactly where? Because things are no longer where they used to be.
Okay, I'm going to place them on the left-hand side where important notices is.
Okay.
It will be there.
All right, that's also where you've been posting the Board of Education meetings, but there is a separate section on the website for meetings and agenda. And so some of us have been looking there because over the past 3 or 4 years, that's where the information was. So things are being moved around, fine, just, I don't know if there's some way of letting us know where to look and where not to look. Perhaps some of those headings can be deleted or changed. Comments were made about the technology, and I had a question, I don't expect an answer, but how much of an influence on the test score is the students understanding and being comfortable enough at the computer? Yes, we know that a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old can play games, and they can text with thumbs faster than we can talk. But when you sit down at a computer to take a test, you really have to be comfortable with how that is turned on, how it's turned off, how you make changes if you need to have those changes made. A comment was made that we did do a test to make sure the students know what they were doing, but I just wonder if we had a better technology situation, if perhaps the students wouldn't necessarily do better. Not be any smarter, just because they can manipulate the computer better, maybe scored better. Other questions that I have. I questioned last month or the month before about supplies, and I was told that we're part of a consortium and we should have no problems getting supplies. Can you tell me whether or not the bids were accepted for our supplies, whether the supplies that have come in have been distributed?
Mr. Jacobus?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The ed data order was placed, like we said, it was late. I really don't know at this point how much of the order is in. If anybody has any issues, just call the office and we'll try to follow up.
So basically, the supplies are not in, based on some of the comments that you made. I also questioned the thumb drives. I was told that they are in Mr. Jacobus's closet, so we shouldn't have to worry. My question is, if somebody felt it was necessary to order 2,000 thumb drives, why are they still in somebody's closet? Who was it that needed the thumb drives? Why haven't they given them out to those people? Are they still in Mr. Jacobus's closet? If nobody has a use for them, then can't they be sent back and we get a refund? Silence is deafening. We were talking about money being very tight, and I had raised the question about the athletic committee. Every month, the flea market generates, on average, $1,000 during the warm weather. I think it's $750 during the weather, the time of the year when the committee has to meet inside. That money has been going to the athletic committee for them to do things for the students. But wouldn't it be better served, perhaps, if it was directed into the general fund and people that had a better idea or understanding of what the schools needed, see how that money should be spent? $1,000 a month buys a couple of computers a month, and that wouldn't hurt anyone. I think that's it. Oh, I'm sorry. One other question. I want to thank you for printing the minutes, but I still have a problem. On the June 23rd minutes, under personnel, item number 15, it says approve the reappointment of school drivers and bus aides. And then at the end it says, attachment in minutes. Well, this is now the minutes, and the attachment still isn't there. And it's not just that one particular item. On June 23rd, it happens at least 3 times on that one page, where it says something's going to be attached to the minutes, and it never is. So the audience never really finds out what it is that's being done.
Mr. Jacobus, can we please make sure that those items are posted to the website along with the minutes, sir?
All right, thank you.
Vincent Frantantoni, please come to the affiliation of the program.
Vincent Frantantoni, 129 Mount Prospect Avenue. That was a lovely presentation by Mrs. Keller tonight, but over my 36 years of attending Board of Ed meetings, I've heard many of these excellent presentations. And I've heard dozens, probably hundreds of acronyms, the QEA1, 2, the CAT, NJS, the AMO. Tonight was AYP, LAL, CSA, CCSA. You know, we don't hear back to basics anymore. These kind of things, all these words are just words. And we're paying people big dollars, not only on the local level, the state level, and the federal level, to come up with all these useless programs. We went back to basics. In 1960, President Kennedy said we're going to the moon in a decade. We did it in 9 years. We designed the plans, we designed and built the rocket ships, we built the computers. Not one single person involved in that program, whether to design it, to build it, or to travel to the moon, ever had any computer technology in school. They were taught basics. And we were taught things in school. Like, I mean, it's so indelible in my mind. The teacher said we have 2 words, principal and principal. They sound alike, but one ends in PAL. He's the guy who went to school, or she, because PAL means he's your pal. And to this day, you can't forget those kind of things. You can't forget how a teacher teaches you. Mr. Samuel Pollack, my shop teacher, when I brought him a piece of wood with the T-square that was light, and he looked at me and says, "Are you a dunce?" I said, "No, I wasn't offended. This man inspired me to get rid of that daylight under that T-square, and to this day, to make my work perfect, because I don't want Mr. Pollack to think I'm a dunce." But today, it's bullying and all this other garbage that we put up with here. But I question, in this report here, when I first picked it up tonight, on the front page, it says, self-assessment. And then I said, by who? And then I read, you know, this is a committee of people within our own system. I think every citizen in Belleville knew that this Board of Education was being mismanaged. How did the self-assessment come up with 100% for fiscal management? We all know on the street, I'm a contractor, I have a laundromat, people come in there and they got time while the clothes are washed and they talk. We all know that this Board of Education was not doing in the best interest of our citizens and students. How did they come up with 100% for governance? This is unbelievable. But what's more embarrassing, what's more disappointing, is now we're going to come up with a DIP, the District Improvement Plan. Who's going to do it? The same people? The same people? That same people. 100% fiscal management and 100% governance. It is just so embarrassing to people with average intelligence that you expect us to believe this garbage. And it's got to end. You know, we enact, tell our kids, CAT, that's a cat, it's an animal. You know, it's got fur. The kids will learn. We have 5 grandchildren, 1 on the way. 2 of them, we walk to school, my wife for a ride. And what do? On the way to school, we do math lessons. We don't talk about some idiotic video game they play. And these kids can add. I got a 2-year-old granddaughter that can recite the entire alphabet, count to 20, and identify every color that you present to her. Because this is what we do with them. We keep them away from the computers. My own kids, no computer and no cable TV until my 3rd one graduated high school. Then I gave him a check, well, buy the best computer you want. But I wanted this thing to work before these things hit. A computer is nothing more than a typewriter with a memory. And we've got to get back to basics. We have excellent teachers that have the ability to teach, but we're not being there. Think about look at the list of regulations and programs that they got. Look at all the wasted time with this New Jersey S, with all this testing and all this, when they could actually be teaching these kids.
I agree.
Let me get off that, just a minute. Why have the lights been off in Cleveland Field for the last couple of weeks? That was a hangout years ago. I and others got you to put lights up at Cleveland Field because there was drugs being used down there. Why have they been out for at least the last 2 weeks?
Mr. Acosta, can you find that out for Mr. Frantantoni? Mr. Frantantoni
Yes.
should be able to call Mr. Acosta's office tomorrow sometime in the afternoon, and he should have that answer for you.
And one more thing, on D3, Pro Media contract, it doesn't say, what's the dollar amount for this 4-month contract?
It's on the last page, sir. $114,000.
$114,000
Yes, sir.
for 4 months.
Plus the $36,000 that they're owed already.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Plus the $36,000 that they're owed.
So it's $150,000
Somewhere in that area, sir.
for 4 months.
Yes, sir.
Why are we doing this stuff in-house?
I didn't see it till tonight, sir.
Please, let's get back to basics. We're going broke in this time, and I think everyone of you should publicly apologize for what you've done to this town, because you're...
Thank you very much, Mr. Please come to the podium, state your name, address, and group affiliation.
Lori Whittam, 32 Magnolia Avenue, Denville, a very, very proud 8th grade math teacher at the middle school. This is my 27th year as an educator in the Belleville Middle School. It's a place I now call home. The faculty has become my extended family because we are a team, a welcoming group of professionals that work together to bring the best possible education to our students. We have always been a close-knit group of educators. We help each other by sharing ideas and techniques to better serve the students. New teachers are always welcomed, and we take them under our wings. We show them the ropes and teach them the secrets of succeeding with a very unique middle school student. We are an extremely knowledgeable faculty, experts in our subject matter, and there's a true sense of cohesiveness. As in every building in our district, we are doing more with less. We find creative ways to work around the daily obstacles we face. We buy our own ink cartridges, science lab materials, novels, board erasers, pencil sharpeners, computer cables, and extension cords. Excuse me. In order to communicate with parents, we use our own personal cell phones, create our own personal email accounts. We are learning to repair the copier and other pieces of equipment. And on the weekends, teachers have even gone to garage sales shopping to look for classroom furniture. In addition to the lack of supplies, our students are challenged by a limited amount of space in the school. We teach our students to respect a person's individual space in the overcrowded building. Students need to walk through the halls in an orderly fashion, which is a challenge because we now need to accommodate over 1,100 students. You can hear state of the right countless times throughout the day. Other challenges include students needing to learn to avoid stepping on a person whose locker's below them, maneuvering around a tight classroom, and sharing crowded restrooms. Our faculty is similarly challenged with space issues. We share classrooms, desk space, and board space. I've even witnessed male faculty members giving up their seat to a female because there's not enough chairs for us all. We are struggling to meet our school improvement plan. One of our goals is to communicate with parents. No access to our school email, intermittent phone service, and sporadic access to our electronic gradebook are among the obstacles we are facing in attaining our goal. Belleville Middle School is fortunate to have quality, dedicated, and caring teachers.
With continued force, determination, we will persevere and overcome the obstacles we are facing. We will continue to do our utmost to deliver a quality education to our students. At the middle school, we are all in.
Thank you, Whittam. Thank you. You're a woman. You're a woman.
Nice, Lori. I wish I was there with you. All of you.
Hello, my name is Joe DeFlorio. I reside at 456 Essex Avenue, Bloomfield, New Jersey. I'm a teacher here at the high school. I'm not here to speak for myself tonight. I'm here to speak for a student, a special needs student whose paraprofessional ran out of Braille paper. And when she went to get the paper, they said...
Excuse me, I'm going to interrupt you for just 1 second, sir. Say whatever you want, but I trust you will not use the name of...
I will not use the name. She ran out of Braille paper, so she went to get the Braille paper, and it wasn't ordered over the summer. So the girl, being conscientious, went out and bought her own Braille paper, $60 worth. But what's disturbing about the story is her social worker was sent up to say, don't expect to get reimbursed for this money. You will not get reimbursed for this. I find that hard to believe. So I hope someone up here could fix this situation and get this girl her $60 for her Braille paper.
Thank you, Joe.
Mike Mignon, 23 Westfield Avenue, Caldwell, Belleville Education Association President. All right, I didn't have any plans to speak today until I heard that presentation. And so that gave me a reason to come up here and ask quite a few questions. Because I don't believe that presentation was an adequate representation of what's actually happening in the schools. So I have quite a few questions. And my first question is, if you look at first of all, the assessment committee. Mr. Rivera, were you on that assessment committee? Because it says board members. Do you know which board member was?
I'm not sure.
All right, well, was anyone on this board? I mean, someone on this board should have been on that committee, because... Okay. Because it says the committee should have a board member. It also says the committee should have a teacher, and I don't know of any representation of teachers on that committee. So, right then and there, I think that committee is not properly formed if you don't have the members that you're supposed to have on that committee. Secondly, I noticed that you have, for the district score for the assessment, it looks like this committee, this committee that we had, gave 100% or 95% to 4 of the 5 categories as their self-assessment, but they gave 60% to the instruction and program, which means that they even noticed that there was something going on with the instruction and program. So to get a 29%, when the board, I can't say the board, the committee, after self-assessing 100% for everything else, decides that this particular category should get 60%. So I'm just curious again, is there any answers on why this category didn't get the magic 100% score for a self-assessment? Because obviously there were some problems with this that this committee oversaw. Okay. Here's my troubles. If everyone wants to look at page 4, and if you would like to look at page 4, or you look at that bottom screen, it talks about what are the previous year's DRPs. Okay. 2012, which is an accurate representation of 2011, because obviously we get to score the next year, gives us a 71% for this instruction program, because this is where I have my problem here. And mainly because the title is instruction, and I don't think that that's clear. I want to make it clear to the entire community what instruction really entails, because instruction does not mean teaching. But that didn't seem to come out in the presentation to me. I saw instruction being presented as teaching. Okay? But we had a 71%. And then clearly downhill from there. Again, we have to observe what happened from 2011 in 2 years. And I think that this is what we've been talking about for 2 years, obviously. So it's no surprise what had happened from 2011, which happened in 2012 to 13, 13 to 14, and now we're continuing that same pattern this year. But I want to go over some of that. You know, if you look up this instruction and programming, it involves curriculum, not teaching. Early childhood programs, gifted and talented. It talks about aligning textbooks, test scores, integration of 21st century themes and skills, pacing guides, list of core instructional materials. It's a broad topic to just call instruction and programming, and then to say we need our teachers to do three-tiered SGOs and 3-point objectives and all that. It's more than that. It's more than that. A score of a 29 out of 100, 29%, is not indicative of a poor teaching staff. And I think that needs to be said. On the terms of what Mr. Egan said, okay, as a little bit more of an accurate account for what we just saw. That we need more textbooks, we need more support. We have excellent teachers. I mean, nothing's changed from 2012 or 2011 to now as far as staff. You have the same staff. You have some people that retired, but you basically have the same staff. So if you have that same staff that gets a 71%, how did they get to a 29%? Did they just decide over 2 years that they don't want to teach anymore? That's highly unlikely. I think we can all understand that. All right, so anyway, that's it. I just wanted to take I would love it if we can put on the website also, Mr. Acosta, through Mr. Rivera, if you could put those 20 indicators that you're talking about on instruction, if you could give us those indicators.
The whole entire thing will be on there. So you'll see every single indicator, yes.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good evening, Georgianne Hill, 127 Stevens Street. I mimic and echo the sentiments of those that spoke before me, that Ms. Keller, you did an excellent job, and also to Mr. Drosky. But, in fact, looking and reviewing the CUSAC, it's disturbing. It's the only acceptable areas where personnel and operations went on January 7th and 8th. We still had a functioning phone system, Power School was up, and we had a running computer that was still working. So I even questioned the ones that were allegedly acceptable. I questioned at that time, considering what was told to us about our end of life with our computer system and the other lacking areas that we have, that we even met those standards. I have a question. If someone wants to make a donation, whether it be technology or any other resources, how are those donations made, and do they have to be approved?
All donations have to be approved to the board.
Okay. And it doesn't matter if it's an individual corporation or nonprofit, correct?
Does not matter.
There appears to be quite a few employment changes over the past 6 months, whether it be people that were being recalled or let go. So I have a few questions concerning that. Are any of the individuals that were rehired related to any board member by marriage or by blood?
George, you know that's a personal question, and we will not answer that question.
No, I'm not asking specifically. It's a general question. No? Okay. I already know the answer. I just wanted to know if there was going to be transparency. When there's an appointment, what is the procedure of reappointing someone that you're recalling back as an employee? Who does the approval? What's the approval process? Does the department manager or supervisor call the individual and have them come in? Do they go before the board first? How does that work?
So by law, all personnel appointments must be initiated by the superintendent to the board.
Okay. So if somebody was called back to work and they actually worked, but they weren't approved by the board, then that would be in violation of the procedural and protocol.
Well, I don't exactly know what you mean by that, but there would be circumstances where a person would start and then the board approval would catch up with them if there was an urgent need.
Okay, great. What precautions are being made to secure that the confidential information of students and parents within the district is secured? With so many incidences occurring where there are breaches in technology, whether it be Home Depot or Target, and we have our own issues with our own computer system and the providers thereof of our services. What is the policy if such an incident were to occur? What is the procedure and policy in terms of notification of a possible security breach? Or do you have one in place?
Mr. Jacobus?
I guess that's a tough question. As far as I know, we have not had a breach in terms of technology. There would be an obligation and a conversation with the attorney as to how we would announce that if we were aware that somebody actually downloaded or entered the system and took information off the system. There are several different areas of our technology that have specific information. Some, the student management software would be one, the accounting system would be another. And in fact, during when the whole system went down, we had trouble recovering that information, but there's limited people that have access to that. So again, an announcement of a breach, I guess we would have to discuss with the attorney exactly how we would do that, and actually how we would prove it. But as of this time, I don't believe there's been any breach.
And do you also have a policy and procedure in terms of confidential information in hard copy, of disposing of such information?
That is, the question is, was there a breach by hard copy? I think that's your question. As far as I know, there was an incident, but I don't know that was breached and it went out to anybody in the public.
Okay, so you're not sure.
Ms. Blight, there is policy as to how it's being handled. Is it being handled properly? And there is an ongoing investigation as the answer to your question. Time is up. Thank you very much.
He also he answered questions, so that took up time. Here's an
If you
idea.
want to use it as a question and answer period, you get your same 5 minutes. Michael Sheldon, please come.
I have one last comment.
Michael Sheldon, please come to the podium.
In fact, the fact that you would even ask the legal fees.
Please don't disrespect me like that.
No, don't disrespect me. My 5 minutes is not up.
Time is up.
I have a suggestion. In terms of working together, as you had stated, let's form a parent-teacher-student focus group that would provide insight and feedback on topics germane to the relative to the Belleville School District. The focus group will be an informal group whose mission will be to gather information and discuss ideas and suggestions as they are proposed by the committee members. And the results of those discussions will be presented to the Board of Ed on a periodic basis. Lastly, my last note, and thank you for being patient with me. The fact that you would even ask to absorb the legal fees and damages as a result of actions of any employee is an outrage. It appears that we are playing let's make a deal with the taxpayers of Belleville. In each case, we end up far less than favorable financial outcome. The legal bills for this lawsuit, to my understanding, is upwards in the area of $600,000. This is the lawsuit, the DiMartino lawsuit. If in fact this is a liability as a result of criminal action, it is a travesty. It is an outrage. When our children are subjected to less than thorough and efficient education, that's one thing. But when our children are allegedly exposed to other criminal activity, endangering their welfare and their physical well-being, then that's another. Again, we have a system that you're innocent until proven guilty, and I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but in light of the allegations, we should not be asked as taxpayers to subsidize the legal fees.
Now, this is not a decision of the Board of Education, nor is it a decision the Board of Education may make. The lawsuit that you're talking about is a civil lawsuit. It's not a criminal lawsuit. Nobody has accused anybody of committing any crimes in that lawsuit. So there is a statute in Title 18A which protects every school district employee and says that if a school district employee is sued in a civil action for issues that arise out of his or her performance of school district-related responsibilities, then they must be indemnified.
Okay, so we don't have insurance.
That's where this comes from.
Does the insurance cover it?
I think we've talked about this before, but I'll remind you that this case was declined by the carrier, and there is now an action pending to be decided on October 30th to compel the insurance company to provide coverage.
Okay, so you're saying just because it's a civil lawsuit, that there's no chance of it ever being acted upon in a criminal manner?
No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that this civil lawsuit does not allege any crimes, nor has anybody accused anybody of any crimes. If somebody is accused of a crime, I'm very familiar with the lawsuit. If someone is accused of a crime, that is to say indicted, then the indemnification statute works differently. In that situation, the person has to be acquitted before he or she is entitled to indemnification. If they're found guilty, they're not entitled to indemnification. Civil actions don't work that way. So this protects you're a teacher in the district, right? So are you? No. So if you were a teacher in the district, it would protect you as well. Anybody who gets sued civilly for circumstances arising out of duties for the school district is indemnified.
Thank you.
Michael Sheldon, please come to the podium, state your name, address, and affiliation if appropriate.
Good evening. My name is Michael Sheldon, 47 Floyd Street. The first part tonight, I am serving as an official representative for the Belleville United Coalition. What I'd like to do is just read our official press release concerning the Belleville Board of Education Candidates Forum that we're hosting on Monday, October 27th. Let's go very, very quick. In advance of the November 4th, 2014 elections, the Belleville United Coalition will be hosting a candidates forum for the 5 individuals who are running for the 2 open seats on the Belleville Board of Education. The The BBOE Candidates Forum will take place on Monday, October 27, 2014, starting at 7 p.m. at the Belleville Senior Citizen Center by invitation of the combined seniors groups. And that's located at 125 Franklin Avenue, the corner of Mill and Franklin Avenue. The forum is expected to run approximately 2 hours and ample parking is available. We are honored and privileged that Mr. Bob Braun has consented to moderate our first annual Candidates Forum. Mr. Braun's distinguished 50-year career with the Star-Ledger includes 30 years as education editor and then as the senior news columnist. The the Board of Education Candidates Forum is a nonpartisan event designed to give the candidates a unique opportunity to express their views and positions on a wide array of vital issues currently affecting our troubled district. In the first segment, the moderator, Mr. Braun, will present the candidates with a series of prepared questions. In the second segment, those in attendance will be invited as they enter the Senior Center to write down questions for the candidates on 3x5 index cards. The cards will be collected soon after the forum starts. All questions and answer interactions will be between Mr. Braun and the candidates. Questions will be chosen by the moderator, and the first person called upon for each new question will be rotated among the candidates to ensure fairness. The Candidates Forum will be videotaped and made available to the general public through our local cable access station and by posting to the internet. And we would like to extend an official invitation to all the city board members to please attend this Candidates Forum, since two of these individuals will be working with you come January 1. Thank you. Now I'd like to serve as, or function as just a regular citizen. I'd like to make one comment concerning the QSAC report, in particular the dramatic decrease in the program and instruction numbers in the last year. I don't know if you're planning to do any sort of factor analysis, but I have to wonder how much of that precipitous drop may be a result of the large number of involuntary teacher transfers that took place in the year leading up to the May election. So I think there may be a root reason why the program instruction numbers saw such a dramatic decline. The other thing I'd like to comment, Mr. Egan mentioned how he found a fraudulent representation in the contract entered into with between the Belleville Board of Education and Clarity. In particular, Mr. Egan said tonight in the Kearney Observer that Clarity initially said that it was an E-rated entity, when in fact they weren't. I'd like to point out to Mr. Egan that there is at least one more instance in the Clarity contract where there is a fraudulent representation. On page 8, Clarity says, and this is the contract that was entered into January of 2014, Clarity says that they have 5 years of IT outsourcing experience. All right, keep that in mind. Clarity did not become incorporated until January of 2013. So I'm doing the math here. I teach physics and calculus, so I may not be the best at arithmetic, but I can do basic math. Clarity was incorporated in January 2013. They claim they had 5 years of experience outsourcing and doing IT work as of January 2014. And if you roll back the clock 5 years from January 2014, Mr. Krieger was still in prison at that time. So my question is, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
No more witnesses come to the podium, state your name, address, and your communication if appropriate.
Bill Milman, Humboldt Street, Belleville. Just had basically a lot of questions not been answered. The radio frequency tags, every 28 seconds they bounce off the students and the teachers. What is the range of that surveillance?
I'm not sure, sir.
Does anybody know?
I'm sure we can get that information for you.
You can stop in the board office and we'll make a phone call and find out for you, sir.
Generally speaking, not outside the school.
Or if you have a legitimate reason.
It's not outside really.
In the close proximity of the building.
Well, what's close?
We'd have to handle it. I can only generalize that specific information.
Okay, because they're telling me that if they're lost, they have to pay for them. Is that true also?
I believe that's correct, sir.
It's correct?
I believe that is correct, yes.
Okay, well, the flash drives, they've been addressed. Anybody know how much cash was raised from the Tricia Goddard show where they went to Connecticut? That was cash. Does anybody know how much cash was raised for that? Where did it go?
Mr. Jacobus, do you have a record of that, sir? Or did you get that information?
I'm not familiar with it at all. I'm not sure.
I'm sure, if you go in and open the information, we can find that out.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Sean Holland, please come to the podium. State your name, address, and group affiliation if appropriate. Sorry. Mr. Holland, hold on for 1 minute. Just a minute.
Just to be clear, the rice hearings are after. I did not see them on the agenda. Where does that take place in the meeting?
Mr. Holland, there's no agenda item related to you on tonight's agenda.
The rice hearings.
There's no rice hearing because there's no agenda item.
I wanted to address a few things. Going back 2 speakers ago.
Mr. Holland, before you start, please state your name, address, and group affiliation if appropriate.
Sean Holland, 174 Bloomfield Avenue, no group affiliation. The first thing I'd like to address is the...
Address me.
That's the same thing. Sean Holland, is this my 5 minutes? Is the clock ticking?
I'll give you the time, Mr. Holland.
Thank you.
I'm asking you that, I want to hear what you have to say, sir, so if you address me, I appreciate it.
Sure, but I'm more comfortable speaking out. So, going back to what Mrs. Polite brought up earlier, I'd like to discuss the incident with the data breach that occurred here in the district.
Mr. Holland, you're not going to discuss the incident with the data breach. It's the subject of pending legal investigation. You're a district employee. You're not to discuss it.
Very well, but when there's time for transparent answers, I'm sure that they'll come. However, I would like to express that there was no malicious intent.
Mr. Holland, did you not hear me?
Right, I'm not
You're not to discuss it. Mr. Holland, I'm going to give you some really good legal advice. Sit down.
Right, I'm entitled to my 5 minutes as everyone else is here, and I'd like to go back to something Mr. Fran Tantoni said about apologies being in order. I would agree with that sentiment. I believe they are. As you may know, I'm the IT coordinator for the Belleville School District. For over the past year, really, it's been a very heavy cross to bear. For over 4 months, I've been the only employee working in the capacity of IT here in the district. And I've done everything I can to support the teachers, support the district's infrastructure, and do what's necessary to move things forward. I would like to go back to something that was brought up about the Clarity contract. Per their contract, Clarity is also responsible for all data backups, including a disaster recovery plan, which...
Mr. Holland, enough. We're in litigation with Clarity. You're an employee of the district. You work on that, in that area. You're not to discuss this.
His risk.
My risk. You're not to discuss this.
You're free to speak.
My understanding is that I am. However, I'll refer to the board attorney and wrap that up. Really what I wanted to do is give a transparent account of the incident. However, per the attorney, that's not appropriate, and I will refrain from doing so. When the time is appropriate, I will deliver that and other information relevant to that investigation and others. When the time is appropriate, I'm sorry.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Moving on to resolutions. May I have a motion on A, personnel? Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Who's the second? Where's the second?
Mr. President.
Where's the second? Mr. Frieda, I believe. Mr. Frieda. Second. Yes, I second.
Mr. President, I need you to vote on my name separately, please.
Jacobus, please poll number 8 separately.
Do you want to pull that first?
Yeah, you can pull that one first, then pull the balance.
Okay. Under personnel number 8, Mr. Grasso. Mr. Kugler. Mrs. Torres.
Abstain.
Mr. Zangari.
Yes.
Mr. Frieda. Yes. Mrs. Lombardi. Mr. Rivera.
Yes. Mr. Jacobus, please poll the balance of
A1 through 26.
Is it 8 through 27, sir?
There wasn't 27 as an addendum, so A1 through 27 excluding 8. Mr. Grasso. Mr. Kugler.
Yes.
Mrs. Torres.
Yes.
Mr. Zangari.
Yes.
Mr. Frieda.
Yes.
Mrs. Lombardi.
Yes.
Mr. Rivera.
Yes. I have a motion on B, curriculum and instruction. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Jacobus?
Mr. Grasso. Mr. Kugler. Mrs. Torres.
Yes.
Mr. Zangari.
Yes.
Mr. Frieda.
Yes.
Mrs. Lombardi.
Yes.
Mr. Rivera.
Yes. I have a motion on C, board action, board policy. So moved. Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion? Mr. Jacobus?
Mr. Grasso. Mr. Kugler. Mrs. Torres.
Yes.
Mr. Zangari.
Yes.
Mr. Frieda.
Yes.
Mrs. Lombardi.
Yes.
Mr. Rivera.
Yes. May I have a motion on D, purchasing and business services? So moved. Second. Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
can we amend item D5 to reimburse the student the funding for the Braille paper?
Mr. Jacobus, can you please amend this to show that we are authorizing the reimbursement of that teacher for the Braille paper, sir? It was a teacher. It was a parent. It was the student. One of the paraprofessionals spent the money out of her pocket, and she should be reimbursed. Mr. Jacobus?
Let me just make a comment on this, and I know it's heartfelt, and everybody means well. There is a policy, and I will address it, and we will try to get the person reimbursed. But there is a policy that it was being reinforced in the district because of financial situation, that purchase orders have to be made beforehand. So I hope you appreciate that. If we don't enforce that, we're going to chase these kind of purchases all year long. So I'll work with the person, we'll get them reimbursed, but understand there is a policy and procedure for this, okay? And I apologize if they didn't have the paper, that wasn't appropriate either, so we'll look at both sides. So that being said, we'll adjust
There's no need for us to put it on the agenda then, right? You'll take care of it, Mr.
We'll take care of it.
Jacobus? Thank you very much, sir. All right. Any further discussion? We're on D. No more? No, hearing none. Mr. Jacobus, please poll the board.
Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Kugler?
Yes.
Mrs. Torres?
Yes.
Mr. Zangari?
Yes.
Mr. Frieda?
Yes.
Mrs. Lombardi?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes. May I have a motion on E, finance? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Jacobus?
Mr. Grasso? Yes. Mr. Kugler?
I vote yes, but no to Clary Bills.
So noted. Mrs. Torres?
Yes.
Mr. Zangari?
Yes.
Mr. Frieda?
Yes, with the exception.
With exception. Mrs. Lombardi?
Yes, with exception, and I would like for the record to say my exception is I'm voting no on the exceptions that I took. because that bill list is a take no part. So I just wanted on the record that I'm voting no on my exceptions.
Mr. Rivera.
Yes. Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, good night.